channel, Savings by the Cup. On today's video, I'm going to be discussing how I budget my husband's check that's going to be coming in this next week. That is roughly around $441. And I'm going to talk about how we manage when our funds are low, because this is the first check that we have coming in this month, and there's a lot of bills that hit at the beginning of the month. So I wanted to talk about how we handle that basically, and why it is super important for everybody to have a buffer sometimes, especially when it comes to bills and when you don't have a lot of funds coming in. So anyways, if you're interested in this type of content, feel free to continue watching, and I'll go ahead and explain all that here shortly. So as I've explained in previous videos, right now my husband is currently in school, which means that he's only able to work 1 day a week or 2 days every 2 weeks, which is pretty much just 2 days every pay period. Now, normally on a month like January, where my check is the first check to come in, any bills that come out this first week, I just use my check to cover. However, this month in February, since last month was a 3 paycheck month, that means that I got paid on January 30th, and because of that, now here in February, the first check that I'm going to have coming in is my husband's paycheck. Now his paycheck is a little bit smaller, so and by the time he gets paid here, we're gonna have all our first week bills due, so I'm gonna talk about how I take care of that. Now I did decide to move the camera angle a little bit because I did notice there's a bit of a shadow, but let's go ahead and start off by budgeting everything. So on this first Friday of the month, my husband, let me look at the date again, I just had the calendar pulled up, sorry guys. So on this first Friday right here, which is February 6th of 2026, here's how much we're expecting to come in. So we'll go ahead and put that on here. We are expecting this check to be $441.50, so you can see that there. Now, the bills that we're expecting to come out are going to be way above that. So let's go ahead and budget for everyone and then see how much we have left over. So first things I like to take out of his paycheck is his gas money, which is $100. I'll put that here, gas. And I'm going to grab my calculator, which I have right here. Go ahead and clear whatever was on there, and hopefully you guys can see it. So let's go ahead and calculate that. So 441.50 minus 100 is equal to 341.50. I probably did not need a calculator for that, but we are going to use it as we continue, so might as well start off with it. So $341.50. And so the next bill that I like to take out is his spending money, which is what we budget for him to be able to spend over the next 2 weeks. That is $164.36. So we'll put that on here, spending money. Now, if you're interested in knowing why I budget the spending money despite not having enough on this check, you can watch some of my other videos. I mentioned that in general, over the month, we have some leftover money. And I don't like for us to budget to have zero spending money, because I'm a firm believer that if you budget that way, you're going to give up on budgeting very soon. So what I want to do right now is kind of like a money rotation. I know that once my paycheck comes in, I'm going to be able to cover all these bills that we maybe don't have money for on this paycheck. So I'm not really worried about us having our spending money, because I know it does fit within our budget and it's not going to cause us to go into debt or anything. So I'd actually rather budget for spending money than budget zero and then have to put that on a credit card. So anyways, we're going to go ahead and now subtract that from our total, which is $341.50. And let's go ahead and subtract $164.36, which leaves us a total of $177.14. So minus spending money, $177.14. Now, every paycheck, the other thing that I like to also take out is grocery money. So $150 for groceries. So I'll go ahead and subtract that off of here as well. Minus 50 It leaves us with $27.14. Now, knowing that I only have $27, there's some bills that can wait, so I'm not going to budget them out of here, but I know, for example, his gym money is something that we can take out of here. It's $18.99. So gym minus $18.99 is equal to $8.15. That's how much we have left. And the last bill that this amount can cover is our Netflix bill, which is actually $8. So we'll put that right here, Netflix. And that leaves us with the total of 15 cents. Now, these are not the only bills that I have coming out this month. Aside from this, I have, I would say 3 other outstanding bills that I know I have to pay within this first week. The first bill is Quicksilver. Oops. Forgive my misspelling. Quicksilver, which is a credit card. And that one is $130. And then we have Verizon, cell phone bill, and internet, which is $125. And we have insurance, our car insurance, which is $378. I know that I could probably pay all of these off using a credit card and then pay them back as soon as I get paid. However, since I have some money in a savings account, it's kind of like a little bit of a buffer. I'm going to use that buffer money to pay for these two. This is already has my credit card on there, so I'm going to put that on here. We're going to pay this with the credit card, and then these two we're going to use money in our savings. So how much do I need to borrow? So again, subtract off of here the $8. That leaves us with 15 cents. I'm going to just continue subtracting the other bills to see how much money I have to borrow out of my savings. I'm trying to make sure you guys don't have a glare here. So let's see, 130. And we're going to subtract 125 for the bill, cell phone bill. So then that means I need to borrow a total of $254.85 from our savings or buffer account. So I'm going to make a note right here. Borrow $254.85 and then pay with credit card. We're gonna say $378, and then that should allow us to be able to cover all the bills that we need to for this month. Now, next week when I get paid my money, which is going to be, my check is roughly around $1,500. That's when I'm going to pay this back to my savings, and I'm going to pay off this balance on my credit card. Now, I know that this style of budgeting may not work for everybody, but I intentionally have money in savings that I can pull out just for situations like this. Unfortunately, because of how it is at the moment, with some paychecks being, at the end, some being closer to the beginning of the month, we kind of just have to work our finances this way. But again, this is why it's super critical to have a buffer, in a savings account, because it allows me to be able to still continue paying off my bills without necessarily going into debt. I do know I'm putting this on a credit card, but again, it's going to get paid off in a week, so it's really not that big of a deal. Now, as you'll notice, I do have other bills, but they can wait. For example, like the hospital bill, I think technically I have till the 28th, even though I schedule it out of this first portion. When my paycheck comes in, I'll pay that off. The other bill that's gonna wait is donation, and then paying the credit card that's under my name, that's towards his college stuff. So a few of these bills are just gonna wait until my paycheck comes around.
So on this portion, I just added a little bit of B-roll from the beginning of the video because I forgot to mention how even though this is what I'm budgeting for this paycheck, it is the least amount that we expect to get paid. He most likely is going to get paid a bit extra, maybe $100 or $150, but I'm not counting on that just in case that doesn't happen. If it does happen, that extra money is what we would use towards paying debt or anything like that. I know I've explained this before, but I just wanted to make sure to clarify that as well. All right, bye.
I hope that this style of budgeting makes sense to hopefully some of you. This is how we deal with not necessarily having, high funds all the time. His paycheck is a little bit smaller. We're only getting this small of a paycheck right now while he's in school. Once he goes back to his normal hours, we'll have enough to be able to cover all the bills and then have leftover money. But right now that we're dealing with low funds, this is how we manage. So sometimes if you ever hear me talk in my videos about rotating money, that's kind of what I'm referring to. Like, I rotate it from one account to the other to cover the bills and then pay it back when I need to. And that way I just make sure that we're on track all the time without necessarily going into debt and, just using my own funds or our own funds to be able to keep up with the bills. Anyways, if you guys would like to see how I budget this next paycheck that's coming out, please let me know. I'm happy to make another video. I'm also looking forward to hopefully making my net worth video where I let you guys know exactly how much I have in savings and all that stuff. But anyways, if this content interests you, please feel free to subscribe. I'm definitely planning on making a lot more videos like these. Have a good one, guys. See you later.